Welcome back to another episode of Holy Unapologetic. We are at part 2 here with Mattie Jo Cowsert. I'm sorry, did I give it enough of a T? As you know, I
You
have the
did it.
Connecticut thing.
You
I
did
dropped my
it.
Mattie Jo. I say Connecticut has
Mattie
zero T's
Jo.
in it. Mattie Jo
Yeah.
Cowsert. Or just
Yeah, right.
trying not
No,
to say
it's
the cow.
Cowser. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming back. We had a great conversation last time, but there is so much to talk about. Before we hit record here, we had already been talking for about 20 minutes on just a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to share it with the people now.
Yeah.
How are you doing? You have a lot of exciting things going on. Do you want to just have a quick little intro here?
Yeah. So, these next 6 weeks are going to be banana crazy bonkers. I work full time. I work as a nanny, which I will also say really quickly for the creatives. I used to have a lot of judgment on myself about the fact that I was like just a nanny or something like that.
Mm,
But then I shifted my perspective and I was like, listen, I can't give the energy and intention and time to my creative things if I'm always stressed about money. So I think there's this
hmm.
like narrative that like if you have a survival job, like you that's
Yeah.
taking away from your art. You need to be able to go like full time. And I'm like, I would never like full time into your art. And I'm like, I
Mm,
would never ever be able to be that person because who just like jumps and hopes everything works out because I I would be so stressed about money and like I can't
hmm,
be in credit card debt. Like that's just that is so just not me. And I have
hmm.
friends who have done it and then they end up going back to their full-time jobs because they're like,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that was stressful, you know?
Yeah.
And you're just kind of fed this like idea that if I just take the leap, like and manifest hard enough, it'll all work out, whatever. But
Yeah.
anyways, all that to be said, I am a nanny and I have come to the just acceptance that I really love it and it brings me a
Hmm.
lot of joy and it's something that I can do and still have time for my creative endeavors and it supports my life that I want to live here in New York. It supports my creative career. And so there are seasons where it ebbs and flows where I need it to be more full time or I need it to be more part time. And so, whatever, all of that to be said, I work full time.
Yeah.
And then I have a show that I'm directing coming up called Middleman. It's written by some recent grads from Boston University, and it's going up in a festival called Neurotica Fest, which is run by this amazing woman, Erie Spar, who is just like such a powerhouse as a writer and a performer and whatever. And so she throws this festival. I'm really, really excited about it. And so that goes up early September. And then I'm also trying to finalize, I'm getting back in acting classes. I haven't been in acting classes for a while, so I'm excited to get back into that. And then I'm also trying to finalize my pilot script so that I can start shopping the TV
Yes.
show in early September as well. So I just have a lot of like irons in the fire at the moment.
Hmm.
And then also my nanny family, my bosses run an arts club actually in Brooklyn, and they want me to start picking up more responsibilities at the arts club, which is so exciting because I love that club so much. It means a lot to me. I've hosted literary events there, and so I'm really excited to get more plugged into that. And again, like more creative circle community, but like it's just a lot.
It is a
So
lot.
that's yeah,
I love that, and I love how you described it, connecting to work. I feel like that's one of the exciting things about adulting and growing up is that you start to realize, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do this.
yeah,
This I would totally, and I think, like, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. A lot of that is about like what everything's gonna have parts that suck about it. What are the things that you love enough to go through those
right.
parts of it, and kind of just getting to know yourself better and knowing, because it sounds like you're living this wonderfully
Hmm.
creative life, and but you also want to kind of understand where the boundaries of that are, which is something we talked a lot about too. And that's
Yeah.
where, like, a book that like totally changed my life was Mastery, by
Hmm.
Robert Greene, because he talked about how, like, well, Einstein didn't start as Einstein. He took, instead of doing the lawyer job his dad wanted him to take where he'd make a lot of money, he did a job where he could read patents all day. So he still was,
Mm,
having the bills covered, and then he was able to kind of still learn about sciencey things and inventions. And so that
mhm.
took so much pressure off of me coming back to work, and feeling like, okay, as long as I have, and now I feel like I have a wonderful balance myself where I have
Mhm.
a job to pay the bills, but when it's quiet, I can read. When it's quiet, I can do some writing. So I love
Right.
that. But we did get into it a little bit about the idea of how do you kind of start to listen to those boundaries. This ties to what we talked
Mhm.
about last time with, like, my body is so smart and she deserves to be listened to. And we were riffing a bit on this idea of, like, you have the kind of female socialized kind of conditioning of like we should be taking care of everybody all the time, and like the
Mm-hmm.
stereotype of the mom never sits down while the men are watching TV. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also just this cultural American, hustle, grind, Protestant productivity culture that makes it really hard to say no to any opportunity. And that, of course, lines up as well when you have something creative and you never know if this yes will turn into the next big thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
where are you at these days in terms of feeling like you have a healthy sense around those types of boundaries?
Yeah, I think saying the whole thing about Einstein is so true because I'm working with this group of like younger, they're Gen Z
Mm.
creatives, and on the one hand it's so exciting because I get to see New York and get to see like the creative landscape through these fresh eyes, which is so beautiful, and
Mm.
I'm really enjoying it so much already. And on the other hand, it's amazing to be like 15 years ahead of them in this process and be
Yeah.
like, I promise you, this thing that you think is such a big deal does not matter at all. Like
Yeah.
this is you just doing this, you just writing this play, you just getting into the
Yeah.
festival and doing it. That is massive. Like you are
Amazing.
taking steps because you're going to learn from this. This isn't the end.
Yeah.
I knew when I
Yeah.
wrote my book, I was like, this is not going to be the best book I've ever written. But I knew
Mm.
but it has to be the first book. You have to write a first
Yeah.
book if you're going to be an author. So I
Oof.
tried to give myself some grace there, that like, because I kept just wanting to like change things and and even the book that I released, I'm like, I look at it now and I'm like, there's so
Yeah.
much I would have changed. But
Yeah.
you have to finish a project at some point, right? Because then it
Yeah.
leads to the next thing and it takes time. So I feel like because of the time that I've spent sort of in like this larger landscape of being a creative in New York City, being a creative in America, but also in the little pockets of what I've pursued, I guess, like professionally or commercially. So, like, I have pursued musical theater professionally. I have pursued just on camera work professionally and auditioning. And I have pursued being an author and being a writer. I think because I've spent a decent amount of time in all of those pockets, I am better able to not feel as much scarcity around everything because and I have more confidence in my decision
Mm.
making just based on like experience in each of those things.
Yeah.
And yeah, and even I don't know, this is a bit tangential, but on the call the other day with the team, they kept talking about like, well, we could market it as like a networking event. Networking is like really big, da, 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 da. And that's so funny. And that makes sense for that age because they're just like so hungry to meet people. But I'm like,
Hmm.
listen, the way you meet people is by meeting people. Like you
Yeah.
just have to stay somewhere long enough to build this massive network. I don't
Hmm.
have the network that I have because I went to a bunch of networking events. I
Mm.
have the network that I have because I planted my feet in a city. I pursued the things that felt right for me at the time, and then I met people that like
Hmm.
are in alignment with that. And that's how you end up getting like, oh, I was doing this and I was doing this, and then my friend was working on this show, and then they referred me to work on, and then you end up like, working on a TV show. And that's
Hmm.
how it happens. It doesn't happen. I mean, there is nepotism, right? Like that is how you get plucked from, undergrad, and then you're immediately a series regular, is because
Hmm.
mama's Uma Thurman. This is from personal experience. Your mama's Uma Thurman, and now you have Uma Thurman's agent. So there is that.
Hmm.
But I think for most people, it's really the long haul. And so this
Yeah.
again, very long-winded way of saying, I
Hmm.
think just by being here, letting the city get to know me, building this
Mm.
network, trial and erroring, I now just sort of go, I don't make decisions around is this, will this make me successful?
Hmm.
I make decisions around, will this bring me joy, purpose, and meaning? And
Yeah.
sometimes, and will it meet some needs, right? I'm sort of always just kind of questioning that. Like, what,
Mhm.
okay, do I take on, I think we talked in the last episode about how I took on that like faith-based film, that Lionsgate film, and it's like,
Yes, yes,
what,
the
like
actual
whatever, that
credit.
wasn't the, yeah, it wasn't the most creatively like amazing thing I'd ever done, but like I get residuals, you know, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's just that.
yeah.
So yeah, does that answer your question?
For sure, and it brings up so many great ideas too. You know, it's not thinking of things as so black and white. I
Yeah.
think too of like Stephen Pressfield. He's written all these great books, like The
Yeah, I
War of
love
Art,
Stephen
and
Pressfield.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so he thinking about like the pros are the ones that are going to sit down and go to work every day, regardless. Like, and I know early in my writing, it was always like I just need to write the great screenplay, and then it's going to get picked up, and I'll be the movie star, and it's going to do all the other things for me. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like and now I think I'm probably too far in the other camp where it's like, yeah, I've written like 12, but maybe when I've written 25, I'll be like good enough to share it. But it's because I
Mm-hmm.
care a lot about the craft. And so we also were
Mm-hmm.
starting to talk about this too of like how much writing advice is like helpful to kind of understand and respect the art and the structure and all these things. And how much of it does it, in my experience, feel a little bit like men that need to define everything and feel like they're inventing something because they can say like, and every story fits into my 3 boxes and you have to follow
Mm-hmm.
this or it's not going to be good. And
Right. Like
how
the
that
inciting
structure doesn't work
incident
for every single
has to
person.
happen at this point. It has,
Yeah,
you know, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I totally, I think I fully like, so I think part of what makes me, or what has helped me, I'll say, become a good writer is that I didn't start like reading those books. I
yeah,
just started writing how I spoke.
yeah.
And, you know,
Right.
there's this saying that like no one has, writing is just talking on paper, and you
Yeah.
can go back and edit yourself, right? And no one has
Yep.
talking block, but everyone seems to have writer's block, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so I just wrote how I spoke and I wasn't precious about it. And over time, I did learn some guidelines like, hey, this is the general attention span that people have. So
Mhm.
let's cap an essay at 1,500 words. Most people aren't going to sit
Mm.
down and read a chapter online, right? They're gonna,
Mhm.
at least when I was starting to write my blog, this was like pre-Substack and all of that, right?
Mhm.
And this is how you start and end a story, because I look at some of my older writing and it's very meandery. I'm like Mattie Jo, land the plane, you know. And so I feel like I learned how to better do that. Like this is where it starts, this is where it finishes, right? And so I think those guidelines can be helpful, but if you start there, at least for me and my personality, I want to do it right. And this is
Yeah,
the only
right?
way to
It's
do
got
it
the
right.
rules.
So
Mhm.
then, yes, right, which comes back to
Just by
religion
page
and comes
12.
back to, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think I can get way too stuck. And so, you know, the very first draft I had of the pilot of God, Sex, and Rich People, it was like in 2020. I look back at that now and I'm like, LOL. Like, what did I think? I did like,
Aw.
because I had no concept of budget or anything like that. So I was like, how did I
Yeah.
ever think I was going to do this? It was too on the nose. There was no, it was all very autobiographical. I wasn't giving myself any sort of creative freedom, which is what I
Yeah.
ultimately wanted the TV show to be, was like, this is the fictionalized tale of,
Sure.
right? And so now,
Yeah.
so as I've grown as a writer, as I've learned more about like what makes the structure of a plot, okay, now I can take all of these ideas and like softly use these guidelines. But they
Mhm.
don't always apply, because like I have heard, you know, I heard over and over that no one's going to read, how many pages is my book? Like
Mm.
325 or
I
something.
listened to it, sorry.
Nobody's,
It's hours
yeah,
and
I think
minutes.
it's, I'd have to grab one, but I think it's like 325 pages or something like
Okay.
that, which like seems like a pretty long book, but it's right there. It's not actually that long. And
Mhm.
I kept hearing like, that's too much. Think about that. Like that's way too long, way too long, way too long. And then I
Mhm.
know so many people were like, it was such a quick read. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It flowed so well. Like,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I think if it's an engaging 400-page book, if it's engaging, it's engaging. Or even with like the content I create on Instagram, you know, the rule is like, you don't want it to be longer than whatever 30 seconds, because you're not going
Yeah.
to hold people's attention. And it's like, well, if it's engaging, they'll probably
Yeah.
stay for 30 more seconds. And so
Yeah.
you kind of have to hold it loosely. There's a, actually in my writing class tomorrow, I rewrote this chunk based on some notes that my teacher gave me. And now I'm a little worried, like, because it's a flashback. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
is this too long of a flashback? Because this
Yeah.
flashback is like 14 pages long,
Yeah.
but it's also the end of act 1, and when we go back to the present, that's the beginning of act 2. So is that okay?
Yeah.
Will this work? And
Yeah.
honestly, you can't find that out until you get to the editing room, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes. And then you'd be like, does it work? And I think you just get better at intuiting those kinds of things the more you
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I think so
Yeah.
much of it is you just got to start, and so I
Yeah.
think I can often hide behind like, well, let me read one more book or take one more
Yeah.
master class, but then
Yeah.
you just start writing and you're like, ooh, I just kind of stumbled
Yeah.
upon something here I kind of like, and so it's that
Yeah.
like imperfect first action, and there's I got to see this woman speak, so I know I've referenced her book a lot, but Brave Not Perfect. I haven't
Mm.
even read the book yet, but she has this whole thing about how like we raise young boys to just go and try and run around and I think she talks about like
Mhm.
take off their shirt at the beach and run around in the water, and we teach girls to be perfect. And so she tells the story,
Mhm.
and I've probably told it on the podcast before too, but it's like she would be helping kids in the class for programming, and whenever a young girl would ask for help, they'd have nothing on the screen. They'd already have deleted it all, and
Mm.
she's like, do Control Z, and then they Control C, and they'd have like 90% of it just right, but they would delete it because they're like, oh, I'm not getting there, I'm not. And so the idea that we have to be
Yes.
perfect before we show anything versus the classic example of like men will apply for a job they're 80% prepared for versus women at like 120% prepared for. So
Yes.
it's all these interesting
Yes.
things too. So I really don't like, especially when like someone like Spielberg will say like, yeah, your first draft has to be trash. I feel
Yeah.
like I complain about that all the time, but you do have to be okay with taking imperfect first action. And
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
saw a
Yeah.
great video about this too, where it's like you just have to be able to keep going from 0 to 1 and try to stay at
Yes.
1. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
0 to 10, and we know what that's like if you try to take on too many like new health routines at one time. You're probably going to crash and burn with that. But like if you can
Correct.
just go 0 to 1 and make whatever video at whatever frequency, in the example of that guy making YouTube videos, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's great advice. But that kind of moderation thinking is much more healthy and sustainable. So I just feel like these
Yeah.
things all tie together: creativity and vulnerability and boundaries and
Mm-hmm.
um, being able to kind of have the confidence to put yourself out there is really, really
Yeah.
hard, and
Yeah.
um, and know
And I
what you
think,
want.
yeah, sorry, really quick about the sort of like masculine rules versus the more
Yeah.
feminine guidelines. I think
Hmm.
that's how it's like you can take all of this information, and I think this is true of fitness and health, and this is true of mental health. This is, you take all the information, but then like what works for you, what applies to you, and what, and again, a lot of that is trial and error. I know kind of the famous script book is Save the Cat,
Hmm.
and that's like, this is the perfect formula for a really
Yeah.
good movie, and da, da, da. But like you can have a book that follow, or a script that
Screenplay.
follows that formula, and the contents of the script can still be trash. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't think that we, again, it can all be information, but I think the very masculine approach of like, you must do it this way or it's wrong,
Hmm.
it just doesn't, it's taken as the right way, like, and we just accept it like this is the
Yeah.
right way, and
Hmm.
it's just not. There are other
Yeah.
options. And so I an example I'll give is I joined this worst decision I've like financial decision I've ever made. I was trying to do the like freelance thing, and I was trying to get into ghostwriting. And so I paid for
Ooh.
this this course. It was a very expensive course, to kind of start my ghostwriting freelance business.
Hmm.
And I remember one of my hesitations, going back to like trusting your gut, right?
Hmm.
One of my hesitations is that all of their ads were, first of all, they were all men, and all of them were like, how much money did you make this year doing ghostwriting? X amount of dollars. How much did you? X amount of dollars. Da, da,
Hmm.
da, da. And once I got into the course, it was very much that, like, oh, well, this is your price, you need to stick to this price, and if, and just be willing
Yeah.
to walk away if they're not going to pay for that. And I'm like, they're not going to pay for that. Like,
Yeah.
AI can do this for them. Why would
Right.
they pay me that amount of money? And I've asked, and I've been on these sales calls, and the second I name the price, they say no. Well, it's working for other people. Maybe you just have a limiting belief, and I was just like, oh my God, do not come at me with this like masculine approach to manifestation, like where you can manipulate the universe to give you money. Like, no. And I hate that so much. It's like,
oh my gosh.
gosh.
I just
So
sent
anyways,
I just sent something like that to a friend of mine where it was basically like men are better at sales because they're trained to not take no for an answer.
Yes.
And this
And
kind
I'm
of
sorry,
like,
if someone tells me no, I believe them.
it's like,
It might just be like my bend toward consent, but I'm just like, I'm
oh
not
my
going to force
gosh.
you to give me an answer. Like, I'm not going to force you. I trust that if you say that price is too high for me, I don't have that in my budget for this, as it's like can't be a financial priority. I trust that that's true for you, and I'm not going to push back. So I guess I was pretty shitty at sales.
Right. Well, it kind of brings up that idea too of like the billionaires that exist. It's like, did they get there because they're the smartest person in the world, or because they have certain characteristics that make you like okay with exploitation and going for just
and
focus
being
on the black and white, just focus on the
maniacal.
number, just that next level of success. I mean, our whole market, when we think about like, well, it's about the shareholder value return instead of actually like making something or helping people, is just like that kind of black and white thinking.
Two books that I read this year, all from people that I worked with in this program at Yale. One of them is called A Life Worth Living, and it's written by this team of theologians out of Yale Divinity, and it explores all of these different thought lines of thinking around what it means to live a meaningful life. And then there's another book called Red Helicopter by this guy James Rhee, who is a millionaire businessman, and it's like the ethics of business essentially, and where he talks about not everything in that makes a business successful is in a balance sheet. Like, like there are some things that are human that will make a business successful that is not in the balance sheet. You cannot distill people down to a spreadsheet. And I love his line of thinking there. Like, for example, he started spending a lot more money on maternity leave and healthcare for his employees, and they obviously this company was going so bankrupt, so under, and they were like, that's a crazy move. Why would you do that? And he's like, well, if my employees are happy and they can have families, and they can stay at their job and they can thrive at their job. And guess what? He was right. That company made a full bounce back, and he made a bunch of decisions like that. Like he said that the company was spending a lot of money on workers' comp because people kept falling. So he was like, why are the women falling? Like, what's happening? And then looked into getting better lighting for all of the stores. Changed. And he was like, oh, look, I can take all of this workers' comp money and I can put it towards their healthcare. Like, so it's those kinds of things that, anyway, I don't know how we got onto this, but when it comes to like religion and all of that, I think it's just like
it's
the humanity in some things, like it's not going to be a number.
Not on the balance sheet. And that's something I hated about the corporate world too, was just like, I would do so much good work, but also based on the nature of the programming that I did, like if I did a really good job, I would be getting rid of stuff that they had to do. Like it would take them 10 hours to do something. I would write code, get it done in a minute. So then it just like disappears. It's not like I built this tower and now you can look at the tower, but like the stuff would go away and people would forget that they ever had to do all this. And so I was like, so how much of my time should I spend writing down stuff that I've already done instead of actually doing stuff that helps the company? Like that was something I really was at war with, but then it felt like, oh, okay, I guess I am supposed to be playing the game of this more and making a document where you can have KPIs of something you can measure, which I didn't like. I'd rather just like be helpful and work hard. But I think that's the other thing too, is, sometimes women are like expected to be valued for what they do, instead of like, I'm going to go sit down, I'm going to have a meeting with the boss and I'm going to tell him what I did. And I'm just, this like, it's like, I don't think we would always think to do that. But it also got me thinking of, I'm glad I remembered what my connection was, that, women coming back to the workplace after raising a family are usually not very well received or valued.
Right.
And so it's like, well, I have this 10, 15, 20 year gap in my resume. And yet they've been learning all of these incredible skills that it takes to run a household, and all the finance and all the management and resource management. And they're like, a book that I really loved was Range. And he talks about how like our culture tends to value these things that are black and white. Like the 10,000 hour rule works well for chess and golf and things that are
Yeah.
very defined. It doesn't work very well for all these other things. The
Yeah.
skills that actually make most people really successful are the people that, like, after 20 years they switched industries completely, and they're bringing all of this amazing knowledge to what they do. And that's less definable, but it has
Yeah.
enormous value. So we like the things that we can actually check a box of. And I get it, I love numbers, but like all
Yeah.
these kind of intangibles. So the value of someone brings to the table. But I think it's a nice thing to remember with creativity too, because like no one could write a story like I would write a story. And so I tend to still keep reading all of these books by men that say that Chinatown is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know
Yeah.
if we need this particular rape story to be held up as the best movie that's ever happened. But anyway,
Yeah.
to be like, whatever I make is special because I made it. And also, oh, to your point too, I wish I had the book with me. I think it's like right out in the hallway because I'm going to take it to work. But the forward of his book that I was reading was like, should I have gone back after 20 years and changed things and upgraded and tweaked this thing here, kind of like you were saying with yours? Should what would I do differently? And he has this beautiful quote, so I'll paste it down after this. But it was about like, that was a different soul that wrote that then, and that was
Yeah.
their like soul on the page, and I need to like honor them, and that person would say thank you that I didn't then go and tweak and adjust a million little things, because it makes sense that we would have that tendency. And now the kind of retroactive changes we see are still happening with books. Like I think like the Ugly series had something changed to reference TikTok instead of like a different show. Like it gets into all this
Yeah.
weird stuff, but I really
Yeah.
like that idea of like honoring the soul that made it then
Yeah.
versus the person that now, of course, could be like, well, that prediction was wrong, so maybe I should tweak it, and then just be like, nope, that is that thing. And I love how
Yeah.
you described that of like, you have to write the first book. You just have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless and release. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's
gotta
just,
ship
yeah.
it. But
Mhm.
I love that. I definitely struggle with it because I'm always like, well, maybe I could just do a new whole thing and I'll be,
Mhm.
I don't know, somehow better. It probably just comes back to like less of a sinner, and I'll like, let's ignore
Mhm.
what I did before.
Mhm.
I've really struggled with going back to old writing, but I'm working on it. And I think a lot of this
Yeah.
is tied together as a creative.
Yeah. And I think, I'm very, very fortunate because, yes, I for sure grew up in like the capitalistic Protestantism, Dave Ramsey, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, right? Just everything was about productivity. My mom is better about it now. That woman can relax. I mean, well, she can sit. She's still a pot of anxiety, but she can sit
Oh,
down. But like,
progress, baby
yeah,
steps.
but my dad is like I just watched my parents hustle. Like I can't remember if I said this in the last pod, but my dad was a pastor, but he also had like 17,000 side hustles. He like
No, I
announced
don't think
at
you talked about this.
so he like announced at basketball games, at our sports events, if it was a track meet, if it was he also would occasionally write articles for the local newspaper. He also delivered newspapers, like, and so he would get up at like 4 a.m. and go roll newspapers, and I'd get up and go with him, and we'd go
Oh,
deliver the newspapers. And it was like he just always had something else he was doing. I remember one year my parents picked up like catering shifts at this place that had a lot of holiday events going on so that they could have more money for the holidays for us. My mom was a full-time teacher, but then would babysit in the evenings. Like I just watched my parents sort of
wow.
cobble together sources of income. And so
Yeah.
in some ways I always like, and then on the, so there was that. And then also, but also they were very big proponents of doing what you love. And I think I talk about
Mm,
that in the book. Like they truly believe that everybody has a divine design that they're meant to live in alignment with, and what is your quote
mm,
unquote calling, and where do you shine the most, and that is where you need to be, and that
yeah.
is what you need to focus on. And so I did have this interesting dichotomy, I guess, that was sort of sourced both from culture and religion that
Hmm.
served me very well, actually, for
Yeah.
moving to New York City, because I knew how to manage a bunch of jobs. I knew how
Mm-hmm.
to manage my time. I knew how to manage money. I knew how to, but I also believed that there was this celestial higher calling of me being a creative in New York City. And that took some figuring out. Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know when I moved to New York that I was going to write a book. No, I was trying to be on Broadway. You know, I wanted to be Liesel in The Sound of Music. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to, which is hysterical because I could never dance that part. But anyway, yeah. And so I did get these influences of productivity and go 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 go, but also that did translate very well in a way that I saw some of my peers not be able to manage because
Mm.
it hadn't been it was it hadn't been modeled for them how to do
Yeah.
that, and so it was too much and they couldn't balance it. But like, I wouldn't say that I was good at balancing it, I just knew how to
Mm.
execute. But over
Yeah.
time I figured out how to better balance. But I also think there's no such thing as balance. You're always
Mm.
just prioritizing something different, and you
Yeah.
have to accept that. I saw a reel this morning that was like naming off all the different friends, and it was like, Audrey has two healthy adorable kids but hates her job. Megan, and she's
Mm.
35, Megan has her dream job at 36, has her dream career and makes a shit ton of money but has never had a relationship. This
Yeah.
person has no savings but they've visited 17 countries this year. Like,
Right.
and
Right.
so that's what I'm like, yes, there's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how any of this is
No, I
really
think
cycling, but
yeah.
it is. I think there is if we want to bring it to gender and religion and the pressures on women in that
Mm.
world, there is an audacity about pursuing a life that is truly yours
Yeah.
and truly feels in alignment for you. Because as we were discussing previously, and as I name in my book, the worst thing you can be as a woman is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I live a and when people hear the word selfish,
Mm-hmm.
it's like immediately has a bad connotation. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that like, it's not like if you are self prioritizing that
Yeah.
you're, what do I say, like, it doesn't make you a heartless bag of dicks. Like, you're not,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you just mistreat everyone in your path. Like, no, we're not all Donald Trump, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
actually some of us can be self prioritizing and actually think of others as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had to think of myself multiple times over the course of I've continued to, but I would say in my like evolving, in my deconstructing and rebuilding, I had to come back to what is the life that I am trying to really pursue, and
Yeah.
what even when I'm tempted to attach myself to these things that society makes meaning of, like being in a long-term relationship or
Mm-hmm.
like making more money. I had to really just always come back to that. What are my priorities? What is the life I
Yeah.
want to live? And that's really hard to do, both within the religious confines of what pressures are put on being a woman,
Yeah.
and also the American cultural ones, where, like, I have a line in my pilot where MJ's character says something to a wealthier character, like, there's no such thing as success without struggle. And the
Mm.
character says, that's not true. I know plenty of people who are successful and haven't had to struggle at all.
Yeah.
And she says, well, then maybe they're not successful. They're just wealthy and powerful. Those things aren't the same. But in a culture that deems wealth and power as success,
Mm-hmm.
and you are defining success on your own terms, that's really hard. Like,
Yeah.
I think my I had this acting teacher that said, when you are a woman in a abnormal or atypical field like acting, you can kind of you either have to have the successful career, or you have to have the relationship, or you have to have a lot of
Mm.
money. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have any of those things, people are like, what are you doing with your life? When are you going to settle
Yeah.
down? When are you going to get a
Yeah.
real job? But as soon
Yeah.
as you book that Broadway role, they're like, oh yeah, no, she's doing
Okay, I
great.
see
She's
you're
doing
doing
great,
it.
right?
Okay, okay.
I think I
All
said that
right.
maybe in the last
Yeah, no,
interview, but anyways.
you had a great point about in the last one too of just like I feel like people take me more seriously because I'm partnered than like,
Right.
oh well, she's out in New York and she's trying her fun little things. But it's like,
Right,
no, like
right.
it's like, oh, I'm an author and all this stuff. But I also feel like there's a Christian part of it too that makes me feel like I have to struggle a certain amount. Like there's the celebration
Yes.
of the struggle. And I'm trying to be in a place in my
Yes.
life where I'm like, what if I'm kinder to myself? What if it's easier? What if I go the path of less resistance? Because otherwise I'll just work myself into like right off the cliff kind of a thing. Because I know what it's like. I know I
Yes.
get so
Big
much
relate.
dopamine from the productivity and I can achieve this, and this. And I have achieved great measurable things in my lifetime. But now I'm at the point where I love stories of like Pamela Anderson being like, I just really like being in my garden. Like I
Yeah.
just like, like just such like being with my plants and like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I know I had all these really big Hollywood dreams, but I think I want the garden more. And it's not even, I'm not even
Yes.
specifically a gardening kind of person, but it's like the idea of slowness is so antithetical
Mm-hmm.
to everything with what we've just been talking about of that hustle culture where I'm like, if I could even just make enough that I could
Mm-hmm.
have a job that I don't hate and I could have a little time to write in the evening or maybe in the morning, I would be so happy. And I think that's kind of what we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
too, is like one fun part of growing up is starting to realize like, I actually don't want to do that. And this would, yeah, it'd be really cool. I was saying like the Mark Manson example, he talks about like, yeah, I wanted to be a rock star on a big stage, but I didn't want to lug an amp to and from like crummy bars back and forth, every night for 10
Yeah.
years. And so like you have to kind of know
Oh
what's worth it
yeah,
to
you
you.
have to I think that is something I came to realize by just doing it, which was like, yeah, um I want to be on Broadway, but really what I want is the ego of it all, of that. I
Yeah.
don't actually want to be in the same show for however long, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't want
Oh my
to
gosh, sounds
go
so hard.
to countless auditions and never get a call back. I don't want to have a
Yeah.
panic attack every time I have to sing in front of a panel of really judgmental gay men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I
I
don't
realized
want
that
to
too.
do that.
I didn't want to do the auditions that came with acting and the rejection that came with it. I was like, I'd rather just sit and write something at my computer than go out and
Yeah,
do the steps involved in this. But yeah, being on
right.
the stage, that makes sense in terms of the
You
feeling
have
of
to
it.
find the thing that you love the journey of, because, and this
Yeah.
was another big piece of advice I got from that same acting teacher who said the thing about, as a woman you can have one of these three things, and if you have
Hmm.
none of them, everyone's kind of like, what's going on with you,
Hmm. Yeah.
so she was saying like, you can't think of your success in terms of the accolades or the goals,
Yeah.
because the accolades and the goals are so short. Like, let's say
Yeah.
your goal is, I want to win an Emmy for
Hmm.
being, an actor. Okay, so you win the Emmy, and then what? That's like
Yeah.
a slice. And I don't know, can you tell me who won best actor in a TV show 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, nobody's going to remember. So like,
Yeah.
it matters in that moment, but if you live for these accolades, you live for these moments, or like
Hmm.
just events. We'll call them events. What about all the moments that got there? You
Hmm.
have to live for those moments that got you there,
Yeah.
or your life will have no meaning and no joy. And
Right.
so you have to find the thing that, like, whatever that goal is, what are the moments that lead up to it that bring you a lot of joy, bring you a lot of
Hmm.
purpose? And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's all great. And like we were saying, like, I think Liz Gilbert calls it like the shit sandwich, like
Exactly. Yeah.
there's
I just
always
read that one. I love
something.
that one.
Yeah. But what is the thing that you can really enjoy the journey? And I think I figured that out, but I also think it
Yeah.
changes all the time too, because
Y-
priorities shift, you go through different seasons,
Right.
so yeah, you can't just live. And I think that's why for me, I have shifted from, oh, I'm going to be a best-selling author, or I'm going
Hmm.
to have this mega hit TV show,
Hmm.
to I want my work to be fun and have meaning, and whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. And
Yeah.
like, yes, and also I want money, but like that can
Yeah.
also look different,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah.
again, it's audacious because it's like where you're going against the current of culture, and you're going against the current of religious pressures and
Yeah.
narratives.
Yeah, it's probably better if you could just get married and then help him with his novel and help him
Yeah.
with his writing. It's got to be the muse. I think that's probably, the better thing to do. But yeah, no,
Yes.
I think that
Yes.
that whole identity piece, I think it's often, a classic example is like the guy who was an athlete his whole life, and then eventually you
Mhm.
age out of that. So what is your identity now? Who are you now? And that can be a
Mhm.
scary transition.
Mhm.
But I just remember
Mhm.
saying that to my life coach, not like, I think probably last year, hopefully not too recently, but I was like,
Yeah.
I can see myself having won the screenwriting Oscar, and still being miserable and just
Yeah.
feeling like it's, there, I'm not enough yet or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I
Mhm.
knew that there was the stuff I had to fix on the inside here, and
Yeah.
instead of just it. But I also like having this really far North Star that I can then kind of work towards. And I'm getting
Yeah.
to this point in my life, like I almost feel like I've been like on like a life raft pulled behind a boat at a really fast speed, and then I cut it, and now I'm like,
Mhm.
what do I do now? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
knew I had to
Yeah.
cut the rope because otherwise I was gonna like fall or but now I'm so used to the hustle. And I think that's also where, probably a lot of I've talked about this too, like a lot of moms keep busy because then they don't have to sit with uncomfortable feelings that a lot of us avoid. But
Mhm.
also, if you've given your entire life to other people and you don't want to have to face that uncomfortable emotion, oh well, we got to have dinner
Mhm.
at this time, and we got to, be ready for tomorrow, we got meetings, we got the PTA, whatever.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to have like the courage to slow down at this point in my
Right.
life, and I think it's really can be scary. But then, yeah, what's my version of the garden? What's my version of just like what would success look like for me? And I think
Mhm.
being able to
Mhm.
kind of slowly find that. I also know, like you were saying, like I can't be especially creative if I can't pay the bills. If I don't have
Right.
a place to live. Like we
Right.
can't like romanticize like other people having other resources available to them.
Mhm.
But I also know what it's like to have plenty of money and plenty of time and not want to write at all because I have a lot of stuff I have to work through. And so that's not just gonna like, oh,
Yes.
I'll write when I have the perfect conditions to write either.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so there's that whole balance of it. But yeah, kind of understanding what other the sandwich is. She
Yeah, the
talks
shit
about that in the
sandwich.
one
Yeah.
I just listened to that one again. But she is
Yeah.
referencing Mark Manson when she's talking about that. It's something
Yeah.
he had written. So but
Yeah.
yeah, I remember thinking about this too, where I was like seeing something, Billie Eilish going on tour, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I would hate that. Like I'm a singer, I've done a lot of my own production, and it's so kind of romanticized how they wrote it in their bedroom
Mhm.
or whatever. And I was like, and I wouldn't want to go on tour and those big
Mhm.
stadiums and like all the work, all the stress that goes into that. Like I should want
Mhm.
that because I like a lot of the same things, but personally, not for me. And so I just
Yeah.
think it's like you
Yeah.
kind of get better at sussing out like what do I want the day to day to be like. And I think that's the thing too, is
Mhm.
like some of it's like less focusing on some far future, but like what would I saw a good quote for this recently too, is like what do you think comes first, the money or the lifestyle? And it was like you got to have the
Mhm.
lifestyle first, and then from
Yeah.
there. And so I think that's kind of a good one to just be more like in the present moment, which in and of itself I think feels selfish for
Yeah.
some of us, to just be like, what would make this feel balanced and healthy and happy, and trust my
Yeah.
gut and trust my nervous system in days where I feel like I can take on everything, and days where I'm like, you know what, I can't take this on today. Is going
Yeah.
to lead to so much of a happier life versus I think I've just kind of for most of my life been in a state of like, okay, I just got to keep doing a little bit, hold on a little bit longer, go to the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
thing, next
Yeah.
thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, and then you barely even kind of look up or come up for air.
Mhm.
It's all tied
Mhm.
to a lot of a lot of the different things.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, this was another thing another acting teacher said
Mhm.
to me. And has really stuck with me in terms of perspective of where I'm at and where I would like versus where I'd like to be, and I think I should
Mhm.
be further along and da da da.
Mm,
She said, "You everything that you're doing right now is gearing up your nervous system for when what you're seeking
I
hits."
like that.
And when I think back on my life, whether it's nervous system or ego, I definitely think
Mm,
that that's true. Cuz
yeah.
once I was truly at a place where having a relationship was not something that or like being in a relationship was not something that I felt I needed to have to like prove to people that I was successful.
Hmm.
Once being in a relationship, it wasn't this thing that I needed for status or
Mm,
financial
hmm.
stability or whatever. Or again, it was mostly like I wanted people to think highly of me. I think
Yeah.
that was, and having a relationship for women is just that's just like, well, that's a sign
Hmm.
that she's successful. Somebody
Hmm.
loves her,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I hate that.
And you
But
have
once
such a
I,
great quote about like, oh, God's great gift to people is this like 18-year-old boy. Like that's
Yeah,
really the
yeah.
I
A
forget how you
straight
word
man
it.
in his early 20s, do
It's like
better at gift
that is
giving,
yeah,
God.
that
Yeah.
is the pinnacle.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like once I truly released that and back to your point of like these layers of being like marred in influence and kind of
Mm.
like clawing
Mhm.
through and sifting for yourself what you really
Mhm.
want versus what has been like put upon you. For me, me personally in my life's work was I needed so much time and experiences to undo that. Um,
Yeah.
Being in a relationship means something about me and my value.
Yeah.
And so once I truly got to a place where I'd done a lot of that work and I was like, I just want a relationship because I want to experience this type of mutuality. I want to experience what it's like to fight with someone and then still be together on the other side. I want to
Mhm.
experience what it's like to share life, to do life with do life together.
Mhm.
But you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the to really
Yeah.
live with someone and get mad at them about like not doing the dishes or taking out the recycling, but then like knowing that they still love
Yeah.
me and like I wanted that experience. I wanted to build a life with another person, one both like bringing each of our experiences, our individual experiences, and then also one that we are truly creating together, both literally with having a kid and also
Mhm.
sort of like symbolically with, okay, there was life before I met this person and now there's life after I've met this person, and like
Mhm.
that looks different because they are imprinting themselves into this new version of my world. I
Yeah.
wanted to experience that. It
Mhm.
wasn't for status or to make people think that I was successful or whatever. It was none of that. It was all of that. And once I was truly that at that point, that's when I think I was available for the relationship I was really
Yeah.
the relationship I really needed versus a relationship that I was going into, holding on to, putting up with, settling
Mhm.
for just because I wanted people to see me as successful. And I think
Yeah.
it's the same for creative endeavors. I think though it was
Mhm.
a grief this last year, of through this program at Yale and reading certain books and whatnot, of going like, man, I don't think The Good Shit of Life is getting the Emmy for the TV show. Like it
Yeah.
might, because I've never done it before, so it might be
Yeah.
incredible. But I
Yeah.
think actually The Good Shit of Life is like sitting in my writer's room with all of these hilariously
Oh.
smart writers and them
Mhm.
laughing at my jokes. And I'm being like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I don't like there are some people in my writing class that are like mega influencers, like they're comedy writers. And I'm like, and you
Mhm.
think I'm funny? And
Yeah.
I'm getting like to collaborate with them and hear their early
Yeah.
ideas, like and spending time with the baby I nanny and her parents who are so cool and so creative and like so
Mhm.
supportive. Like that's the good stuff, like
Yeah.
being with my nieces and nephews and going to literary events and meeting other creatives, like that's the good stuff. And so
Mhm.
even like some of the stuff that has come because of the videos I've been creating, the good stuff from my content creation isn't that it got X amount of likes. It's that
Right.
it reached this filmmaker who now wants me to
Yeah.
be in her film. It's that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, right? And so
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a grief for me because I'm like, yeah, that thing that I have been reaching for so long, I still want it, but not as much as I thought I did. And I
Yeah.
actually do, like, if it comes, amazing,
Mhm.
incredible. But if it doesn't, I really love my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of hard to admit to yourself when you're in that like capitalistic, like productivity, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah. Keeping up on your dreams, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then I think because I'm more at that place now, when the TV show deal does come through,
Mhm.
when I do have people in the industry that I've looked up to for years and they're like, wait, we
Yeah.
want to produce on your show or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm going to be ready for it. My nervous
Yeah.
system is going to be like, this is so exciting.
Yeah,
Not
this is
like,
great. Let's
oh
do it.
no, and what if this all goes away tomorrow? You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it won't be that frantic, fearful stress and like, oh my gosh, what if I don't write the right joke? Then I think I'll actually be in a place where like, well, if I don't write the right joke, good thing I'm going to have a writer's room of really funny
Mhm.
people and they can write the right joke for that. You know,
Yeah.
I think I'll be a little less, my ego just won't be as involved. And
Mhm.
that's what I hope anyway. I think that's what life is building me up to,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah, I think I've heard a variation on the quote where it's like the next writing project or the next creative project isn't necessarily, it doesn't have to be the one that gets you whatever big obvious thing.
Mhm.
It's gonna make you the person that can do the next one, and that like
Mhm.
totally shifted
Mhm.
it for me because again, I hate the idea of like, well, I have to write this many bad ones and then I'll start getting
Mhm.
good. Like, obviously, hopefully, you get better and better, but I still like stuff that I wrote in the past, and I still think like
Mhm.
I've written things that were funny or whatever. But yeah,
Mhm.
that you're gonna then be the person that's ready to take on that next project. I was like, oh, okay, then I can think of it that way because I think
Yeah.
personalizing is a big part of it. I don't know if athletes feel as insecure about a singular part of their body as much as a creative might think that I don't know if the scene is working. I don't know if there is that
Mhm.
like if it is that personal, and in some ways probably it's more so, in other ways it's probably less. But like
Mhm.
um, to just think of it like, oh, I just want to get better at this, as opposed to I don't know, waiting forever to kind of show it off. Because I also think that would be such an incredible. I'm very hesitant to share my work, but the idea of like I want to meet other people that are
Yeah.
passionate about this and excited about this, and then I find my own ways of doing that too. Like even just with this podcast, and so like we weren't sure if we were really going to be meeting this morning, but I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, well, you know what? Whatever happens, like I'm going to be prepared because
Yeah.
I'm a nice person. I am very
Yeah.
well researched, and I really like talking about. I've done this for however many episodes to get better at it and ask questions, and I also
Mhm.
know a lot about these topics, and I care
Mhm.
so much about these things that it's going to be fine either way. It's like there's
Yeah.
not really a way that this can crash and burn, kind of a thing. I do want to try to pivot into just a couple stories from your book because I really want to get into
Okay.
these last time. I know that we could probably go on forever about this stuff, so I'd
Yeah.
love getting to know you in these ways. But I want to dive into two of these stories because, again, just I think one of my biggest passion areas is how being raised female and sexuality and
Mm.
purity culture and all of these things um, are pretty terrible in how society
Yeah.
treats women and all of this stuff, and we set young men and women up for failure in different ways, but certainly how they intersect.
Mhm.
And I think you just did a really lovely job of it in your story of like what like and I'm kind of surprised how quickly reading your book, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just a young girl again that's really into the church and I'm going to do really good on this mission trip. Like, I was so
Yeah.
inhabiting your story and like, I want to do a good job and I'm not going to have
Mhm.
sex before marriage. And like, and then you kind of walk through the story as you go through these changes. And, I kind of
Mhm.
described it like Jenga and how you have these different question marks as you go. But I guess I'll jump into one of the first ones. You have this story about your almost first time with your longtime boyfriend. He's
Mhm.
Christian. You guys are probably gonna, you're on the total
Mhm.
right path. But you also get to this intimate moment where it seems like it's gonna go to that next step, and you're actually at this point where you're like, I'm ready for this. I
Mhm.
feel comfortable. I'm good. And then, kind of at the last second, he's like, no, 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 we shouldn't be doing this. And then he later messages you to, or I forget if he called or if he
He
called, but he was
tells
basically
me cuz he
tells you like,
kicked
well,
me
I just,
out.
I
Yeah.
just, yeah, I just watched porn instead. So now I'm double sinning. And what I love
Yeah.
about it, and I want to hear this in your words as well too. So please feel free to retell as much or as little of this as you want, because
Mhm.
I'm going from kind of my emotional memory of the story. Um,
Mhm.
but you were kind of like, I felt this like rejection and this frustration, and it wasn't just how we kind of build our brains in purity culture to be like any bad feeling is because I'm a sinner. Like everything kind of tumbles into that bucket. It's because we should have waited. And you're kind of like, no, there's
Mm.
something else here that's kind of really messed up. So do you want to talk about that story? Because I think it's like if you
Yeah.
told one story in your whole book, I feel like that's the representative story.
Yes, thank you for saying that because that story of all the stories, when women reach out to me, they're like, me too. They all have a me too moment of that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we were about to have penetrative sex and he didn't. And then went and watched porn, and now he, has to deal with this porn addiction he has,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
And just the shame that you feel in that moment. Yeah, I had a really hard time with that chapter rewriting it because I wanted
Yeah.
to be true to what I was feeling in the moment. I didn't want to tell it from Mattie Jo's perspective now.
Right. I
I
feel like you played
wanted
with that really well.
Yeah, but I wanted like that was a tough dance. And actually, I don't know if you follow this account. My friend Kelsey is like this mega influencer. Like Mandy Moore follows her.
Ooh.
But she read some early versions of my book, and she was the one who gave me. Anyway, I say this because she's an amazing storyteller. That's why I mentioned the like influencer thing. That's like how she became an influencer. She's a really good storyteller. Anyway, she was like, I want to hear that chapter. She was like, I want you to drop me into Mattie Jo in that
Yeah.
situation versus hovering above her and telling us like what you think about it
Yeah.
now.
It's
And
gotta
that
be
was
hard.
such a great note that she gave me. And I really tried to do that. And so the story is that he kicked me out of his room, spoiler, and made me go sleep in his roommate's bed who
Right.
was not there. I could have left. I could have driven home. Maybe I made a dramatic choice to stay. I can't really recall, but
Yeah,
I
I think
do
it's
know.
understandable under the
Yeah.
circumstances. It
Yeah.
somehow
I
feels
think,
slightly less rejecting to just be still sort of close, but that's still just so
yes.
awkward.
Yeah, but he just did not want me to sleep in his bed. That was the thing. Like, no, you can't be in my room, you can't be in the bed and whatever. And so then he tells me this the next morning that he didn't say I looked at porn, but he said I looked at a woman, and I was like, "What?" And so then through, kind of getting him to actually say it,
Hmm.
it was like maybe it wasn't porn, maybe it was just like a woman who was naked, but whatever he did, he got off to someone on a screen instead of his girlfriend that he'd been with for
The
almost 2
human.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I yes, rejection. 100% rejection, but I remember not feeling in that moment like I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Like I remember feeling so mad at him,
Hmm.
like enraged. And
Hmm.
I knew in that moment, I knew even though I had to backpedal it and then gaslight myself a few times, I knew I didn't do anything wrong in
Yeah.
that situation. There was this like quiet
Mm.
knowing that I had not done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think he did anything wrong. Like looking back,
Mm.
I'm like, dude, we were both just operating. Like, I don't blame him for anything. He's
Yeah.
actually just like
Sure.
such a
Sure. Sure.
quality dude. He's a really good guy. And I think he just, yeah, we were both just operating under this like really fucked up system that
Hmm.
results in something that should have been the chapters called pure love. It should have been so pure and so beautiful and such a
Hmm.
pure expression. And yet that was the fallout. And so I knew I didn't do anything wrong. But
Yeah.
then all the thoughts, right? Oh, it happened like this because we should have waited. I'm being punished because we sinned.
Hmm.
Our
Hmm.
relationship is now just doomed to fail. He'll never, and then I knew he'll never see me the same. He'll always
Hmm.
see me as the woman who like almost made him stumble and like led him, forced him into that situation of getting off
Yeah.
to another woman. Like it's all going to be my fault. He's never going to see me as like someone that he would actually want to marry. And for the most part, I was right. Our
Hmm.
relationship never fully bounced back after that.
Mm.
And I think I didn't trust him. I think he had lost a lot of my trust. I had just done something very vulnerable. And I feel like he just took a piss on it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think I was just mad at him. I was angry. I didn't trust him. And then on his side, I don't think he ever saw me the same. I
Yeah.
think that there was some shame that he was holding and then making it come from me. And then it was a self fulfilling prophecy, right? Because our relationship didn't bounce back because we were believing all of these things. And
Hmm.
also, we were incompatible. I'm very grateful we did not end up together. We would totally have gotten a divorce. But yeah,
But yeah,
and
and,
I think
and
every woman who goes through something like that has that. They just
yeah.
don't know how to listen to it because again, they're mired with all the other narratives.
Yeah, and again, like Pure, the book that we talked about, and the author, Linda K.
Mhm.
Klein, she has that story of like they got married, they waited till marriage, and then it was terrible. Like it did not work out. They didn't know what to
Yeah.
do. They weren't happy. That
Yeah.
she couldn't like just turn off the shame thing, and that's something that like I hate so much. Is like we're basically raised to be asexual, and then
Mhm.
a breeding machine. Like you're just then
Yes.
supposed to, and we talked about this last time too. Like you're supposed to not want sex because then you're a whore, but if you
Yeah.
but then that's just rape if you don't want it. And like, but the man is supposed to really tell you that you want, like, and there's all these, there's so many song lyrics that are just like, she's a good girl, but I know she wants it. And so like, I make them good girls go bad. It's like, but like,
Yeah.
why? Like, why are we so afraid of a woman that actually wants things sexually? And so that's where it's like, I can think about like 2 occasions in all of media history where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a woman that's expressing desire outside of like,
Mhm.
yeah, she's playing the prostitute character or whatever. Like there are like these couple of occasions where they let it exist, but
Mhm.
like I just knew, I was like, this is something different. This is something I feel like I've never been allowed to see before. And there is nothing
Yeah.
like cooler and more empowering than a woman that like owns her sexuality, but it is certainly does all of seemingly society
Yeah, and
try
it's
to
always like
tamp that down.
it's always the woman who is like a sexually expressive. It's always like Scarlett Johansson. Like
Hmm.
you have to be a certain level of hot for it to
Yeah,
just be okay.
yeah,
Like let's see freaking Rosie O'Donnell want to
yeah.
fuck. That's what I want
Yeah,
to see.
these
Because
people, or
what
let alone like older women, they still can have sex,
yes.
believe it or not, and they deserve to have pleasure. It's funny because you made me think of like you were talking about Uma Thurman. Like
Yeah.
it always bothers me that when someone plays Poison Ivy, they're already gorgeous, and then
Yeah.
they like. There's literally a scene in her Batman and Robin movie where like the guys are like, "Hey, babe," and she's talking to these guards, and then she goes, "Whew," and they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, babe," like it's like they were already gonna do whatever you asked them to do. Like you're in spandex, you're gorgeous, you're with Thurman. Like I was like, they need to have it'd be a really cool character to have a non-traditionally attractive woman who kind of knows that this whole thing is bullshit and the fact that the hot people get away with anything, and then is like has their
Yes.
little magic powder, and then they realize how easy the world is for people that are attracted. Like that, I think is gonna be way
Yeah,
more
and I
fun.
think
But yeah,
yeah, one of the reasons I know people have really polarizing feelings about Amy Schumer, but one of the reasons
sure,
I loved her is
yeah,
because she was an unconventionally like
mm-hmm.
you know what I'm trying to say. She wasn't
Sure,
conventionally attractive, right?
mm-hmm.
Like she wasn't what you think of as like a blonde comedian, right? She's
Mm-hmm.
not Nikki Glazer.
Yeah,
And she was excited about sex and she was talking about
yeah,
sex. I think there's like that comedy bit, Two Dykes with a Mic, where they're like, we need more horny girl representation. The
yes,
only
yes.
horny girl in media was Helga Pataki.
Yes, I know. I saw that clip. I think you maybe shared it.
And
But yeah,
yeah, and I was like, yes, exactly.
yes.
And so it's yeah, and it's like if you're and even the most, it's interesting. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. Even the most evolved, confident, kind men are a little threatened by
Yeah.
a woman who expresses objective excitement about sex
Hmm.
if it is not directed at him.
Yeah.
So, like, I am a person who talks about my past. Like I am a person who I am not never going to pretend like it doesn't matter who my partner is, whatever, never going to pretend like I've never been pleasured by another man. Like that's
Hmm.
a you ego issue. Sure, everyone's got their different like levels of comfortability of like how much they want to hear about it, obviously. But like
Yeah.
so I won't be disrespectful in that regard. And I've definitely had conversations with Ken around stuff like that. But yeah, that's just never going to be me. And also, if I see a hot guy, like my joke during the World Cup was like, Ken would get so excited about a play. And I'd be like, babe, I'm only here for the part at the end where they get sad and take their shirts off. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
That's what I'm here
and
for.
that, like, and I'll make jokes like that. And like, Ken is, I think it still bothers him a little, like, and he's so evolved and
No.
he's so confident and like,
Yeah.
and I still am kind of like, I think it bothers him a little. Like, we just don't know what to do with a woman who is objectively excited about sex, about
Yeah.
naming someone's attraction. Like even guys who I'm not in a relationship with or whatever, if you just say like, damn, you look really good. Like I'm not even saying I'm
Yeah.
attracted to you. I'm just like, you look really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
You should be very proud of yourself right now. This is
Hmm.
working.
Yeah.
As a coupled woman, people would find that highly inappropriate. And I'm like,
Yeah. And men never get
why?
compliments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And men love it. And then
They
of
love
course
it.
they're like, "Are you hitting on me?" I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Yeah, yeah, and it's just it ties to so many things. I mean, like the idea of any men that care about body count probably comes from a deeply insecure place of them not feeling like they might do very well, but then they're also trained to not really
Yes.
care if they do very well. Like
And
a
they
never-ending
do.
joke about like who cares if she orgasms, or it doesn't
Yeah.
exist, or like I just these things that you just see as some TV joke when you're 10, and then you just start to like have this understanding that, yeah, like women shouldn't have any sexual desires of any kind. And
Yeah.
I just think like there was this great quote, and it was more about the fact that like a lot of people aren't having kids anymore. And it was like, do you know how
Mhm.
badly you have to abuse an animal for it not want to like reproduce in some kind of
Yeah.
captivity? And so it's like,
Yeah.
it does feel like this ultimate thing of like health. If you feel horny, that should be the thing. And
Yeah.
so I think I'm still working on like, I still don't feel like I'm allowed to do that. And I
Yeah.
know like my wife brought something up the other day from like sometime, I think a couple of years ago before we were dating, and I had been drinking. And so I was talking about like all these female actresses that I just love. And I was like, and I want to marry
Uh-huh.
this one, and I want to marry this one. And I was just joking about it. But like
Yeah.
she brought it up the other day because it just had related to one of those actresses. And I felt so much shame. And I was just like, oh no,
Mm.
like horny Marcus was out. Like he was actually able to say it. And so there's this weird, there are all these things that I'm trying to kind of work through. And then of course just like
Mhm.
internalize my own homophobia about like, am I actually allowed to find women? Because like from the
Yeah.
earliest age, I remember saying to like walking out and see the TV, and I was like, oh my gosh, Amanda Bynes has such a cute smile. And my brother was like, you're not supposed to think girls have cute smiles. Like from this young age implanted, like, oh no, nope, shut that
Mhm.
down. And so
Mhm.
I still
Mhm.
am trying to find a way to let horny Marcus like exist, because I feel the same pressure, even though I'm in this beautifully wonderful happy coupled relationship.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm supposed to be that asexual kid, that like unless I'm making babies for a Christian man, like I should
Right.
not have any of that. And I feel like my creative energy is tamped down because of it. So
Right.
I'm trying to kind of
Yeah.
learn how to heal those things. um
Yeah. I
yeah.
have a vision or an ambition of like re-releasing my book with a traditional publisher and having
Hmm.
like a whole stand-up bit that goes along with like a tour that I would do of the book, and the title
Love.
of the tour would be, or maybe this is the title of the book, I don't know, Horniest Girl in Youth Group. And it's like
Yeah.
like for
I
all the
love
girls
that.
who got called boy crazy, who got like,
uh,
my joke is like I was being slut shamed for the thing that they want us all to be, which is like
yeah.
enthusiastically straight. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was being shamed for like, oh, now I can't even be excited about boys. I'm already not kissing them. I'm already not
Yeah.
dating them, but now I can't even express excitement.
Right.
Like, what?
And
So, yeah.
I hid behind that a lot too. And I talk about it like I'm grateful I'm bisexual because I was able to perform that heterosexuality very well. I was able to like joke
Mhm.
about how hot these
Mhm.
people are, and I did believe, and I happily dated men. But I also
Mhm.
think it took me a lot longer to realize that I wasn't straight because I was able to hide in that. So it's like if I was
Yeah.
more miserable, if I was just a lesbian, then maybe I would have known sooner. But also I was able to kind of perform that heterosexuality. But yeah, you're not supposed to want it at all. So I'm going to do a quick rant about one movie
Okay.
that really bothers me on this topic. And I
Okay.
think about it a lot because I work at this beautiful ship here in Long Beach. It's a historic 1930s luxury liner museum. And it's a
Mhm.
really popular filming location. So anytime they want to film like an old Art Deco boat, they come to Long Beach, which is not too far from LA. So we have a
Okay.
bunch of movies filmed here. We have this little reel that plays before our tours that shows some of the movies. One of them is Pearl Harbor, with Ben Affleck
Mhm.
and Kate Beckinsale. And so I remember watching that movie, and they're like, early on, they're like, he's about to leave for war, and they're like, okay, we're gonna have sex before we go to war. And then she's like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm actually okay with this. I'm ready. I love you. I want to do this. And at the
Yeah.
last minute, like they're about to go up to the hotel room, and he's like, you know what? I'd rather just like remember you and like be horny for getting to take your virginity later after the war. Let's not do it now. And I just remember being so annoyed. I was like, the one time a woman actually says yes and is a consenting adult, he's like, I'd rather the idea of it. And then, of course, later there's the whole they think he dies at war. She falls in love with someone else, and it feels like the first thing he comes back when he comes back from war, he's like, "You had sex with someone." Like this is what I remember of that movie. And so every time I like would be doing a tour, I'd see this little clip of them in the ship, like in Pearl Harbor, and I'm like, "Oh, Matt, the man Ben Affleck and Kate Beckinsale wanted to have sex with him, and then he was like, no, I'd rather like it just brings up all of these things because women can never
Yeah.
express that they want it, but the one time that she does, and he's like, nah. And of course
In
you need
vape
two people
or
to have
yeah.
consent, but the idea of like really he's the only one deciding if this thing is happening or not, and still to kind of build up the idea of her virginity in his mind as this like carrot, as opposed to like being with the person he knows and loves now, is something that drives me crazy every time I see
That is so interesting. I know you have another question, so I want to like leave time for it.
it.
But it's just so interesting because when I talk to men, healthy men who I think are like good dudes, and they're not even like super woke or anything. It's not anything. They're just like
Yeah.
dudes who weren't indoctrinated like this deeply, I
Yeah.
guess, or like maybe they just don't buy into. They're a little bit more aware of their like toxic masculinity or something like
Hmm.
that. I don't know.
Sure.
They all are like no sex ever happens like without a woman like agreeing to it, and their whole thing is like it's so difficult. Their like belief is like it's so difficult to get a woman to agree to have sex with you. Like
Oh.
that is their perception. Like this is a very difficult task. So the fact that there's this
Ah.
whole other narrative that so then they would say like if I met a girl like you who was just like so DTF and like so clear
Yeah.
about when she was ready and all of that, they're like
Right.
thrilling, so
Yeah.
exciting. I would be so
Yeah.
into that because for
Yeah.
them they feel like it's such a guessing game. And
Sure.
now coupled with like Me Too and all of the question marks there, I think
Yeah.
it's for a lot of good guys, they just don't make any moves because they're just
Yeah.
like, I don't want anything to be perceived. Like they're just
Can't
really
even
not
hug
sure
anyone
what to do.
anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Like it's not that kind of attitude, but I think there is this like fear, right? They
Yeah.
really don't want to make the wrong move. They're very, very hyper vigilant and they're insecure, right? This is another thing that like actually
Yeah.
we have to really think about men and their egos. Not egos. I
It's
don't want to make it be
the
like that,
only
but
thing that
like they
matters.
are, they're fearful. They're fearful. I don't even want
Yeah.
to say insecure, but they're fearful and they're trepidatious, right?
Yeah.
And I actually think there's a healthy amount of that. So the fact that like there is this sort of toxic masculinity that's woven into our culture so co- uh covertly and sometimes overtly, that's like
Mm-hmm.
women can't express, and we're not even talking about sex, we're talking about like just plain old attraction or like whatever,
Yeah.
right? So interesting because I feel like so many men have been like, dude, I would be so thrilled if a girl was just
Yeah.
like, I'm really excited to have sex with you, can we go
Yeah.
do that right now? They would be
Thrilled.
like, that never happens.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
because even if a woman does want it, they're trained to not really express that, or like the shame
Yeah,
around that too.
right,
But yeah,
right.
and then it gets into all the weird stuff too about how men are basically taught by these manosphere men about what women actually want instead of actually spending time with women to know what they
With
want. And so
women, oh
it
my
makes sense
gosh,
that they would
yes.
be have an insecurity. And so like I was joking about this on my page the other day where I was like, men don't need to dress up as women to spend time or to break into women's spaces. I was like, just be born a woman and then you get to spend time with women as friends first, and it's the best thing ever. Like nothing's better than
Yeah,
the girl sleepover party. And then
right,
later, I turned into a man or whatever. And
right.
but it was just like they see that they're just from such a young age, we're split up so that they see women as the other.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
everything in the manosphere treats them as like a completely different species. And that's one thing that drives me crazy too, is like the people that are transphobic are also really misogynistic, because they'll be like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, a woman couldn't be president. Like she would,
Yeah.
could be on her period, and she's, or the way that these very like heteronormative couples, like wives, will talk about their husbands, like, well, yeah, I mean, he doesn't have any emotional intelligence. Like, like the people that are like, you, a man can't be a woman, have the
Yeah.
worst beliefs about men and about women.
Yeah.
And I just find
Yeah.
that really sad. But yeah,
Yeah.
all of these things are tied together. The only other story I was going to jump into, and we could probably kind of be sort of quick with it. It's a
Mhm.
very infuriating story from your book, but such an important one. I think one that you equally get like Me Too about is the
Mhm.
obligatory blowjob story.
Oh yeah,
This
the
is a guy
obligatory
you go on
blowjob.
one
Yeah.
date with, and then he's like, "Can I sleep over?" And it's like, "No." And then he's like, "But can I sleep over?" And then in the same bed, it's, oh my gosh, I just feel like every woman, probably has experienced something like that, the obligatory blowjob. And I think of like, even as someone that was very horny for men, still felt like,
Mhm.
why am I having to give obligatory blowjobs? Like it's just like,
Yeah.
it's that's the only difference from like friendship to dating, is now I have and that's
Mhm.
actual dating. But in your story, there's this guy that
Mhm.
just won't let you sleep as he said he would, until
Yeah.
you can get him undistracted biologically, to put it
Yes.
one way.
Right.
That story made me so angry, and I think so many women relate to it, because this is a guy that's just not taking no for an answer. So wherever you want to jump in on that, I did just want to highlight that story, because I think it's another one that is just so representative of the whole thing.
I love your review of the story. You go on one date with this guy. He says, "Can I sleep over?" You say no. He's like, "But can I sleep over?"
Yeah.
It's so true. And then as the
Oh,
woman,
so bad.
you're, yeah, so many feelings. And you're absolutely right. These are two really, thank you for kind of clarifying and articulating that for me. I think those two stories really are like exemplifying the whole thing, right?
Yeah, because I would
Yeah,
love to have
so
listened to
much
your
there.
story, your book, like three more times before we met, but we met pretty quickly, and so I'm kind of glad that these are just like what my emotional memory extracts from it.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of basically what you're saying. So anyway, please go ahead.
Yes. And you're so right. I was so afraid to release that because I released that as a blog first,
Mm,
a much shorter version. And that was the one I was the most afraid to release because I was like,
yeah.
dude, I'm literally admitting that I have sucked so many guys' dicks just to get them to leave me alone. Like,
Yeah.
ugh, what a dirty,
What a
slutty thing
sentence.
to admit, you know? And
And
who
yet so
does
many women
that?
do that.
And I had all of that judgment. But then I was like, one thing I had learned by that point when I released that blog is that almost every single time I spoke about something that was very nuanced and very private that I'd never seen talked about before, a
Mhm.
flood of women were like, me too,
Yep.
me too, me too, me too.
Yep.
So I was like, hopefully they don't all
Yeah.
think I'm a dirty slut. And like, even though like
No.
be a dirty slut. No, but it was, and there's
Sex
nothing wrong
posing.
with giving blowjobs to a bunch of dudes if you like blowjobs. The
Right.
thing that's wrong about it is that, so Brenda Davies talks about this. There's like what a lot of people forget when it comes to assault is there's fight or flight, and then there's fawn. And
Yeah.
people really forget about fawn. And
Yep.
this is why sexual assault is so muddy and murky and can
It's
be,
so hard
because
to,
women
yeah.
will fawn as a
Yeah.
form of protection.
Right.
Because if we get mean, right? Even starting from that first thing, I said no. I said
Yeah.
no. And he was
Yeah.
like, but are you sure? And I'm like, well, now you're putting me, now if I were in that situation, I'd be like, yeah, I'm sure. Leave me
Yeah.
alone and
Bye.
don't
And then
talk to
put
me.
down
Why
the
did you
phone or
even ask
something.
again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
But
brings up
back
to the
then, yeah.
like if you don't have a safe no, then the yes doesn't mean anything.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
is another kind of
And
element of that sense.
yeah, I would have, and at that point in my life, I was not as discretionary as I could have been in terms of like who I was letting in my private spaces. And I don't even mean my body, I mean like my bedroom.
I didn't
And
take it that way.
for so it's not even about like you know, it was my fault. It's just I became much more careful about who I allowed in my space,
Yeah.
and
But
as like
that's
a safety thing.
yeah, and it shouldn't have to be that way. And it shouldn't be that women can't ever drink or can't go out in public. Like, but the
Right.
most recent times I was raped were both men that were older than me that I knew from the area and said they were going to get me home. Both times.
Mhm.
And so it's like it's
Mhm.
it's not some stranger jumping out of the bush, which is easier for people to have their minds wrapped around. It's like, no, these are
Right.
people that I would have felt safe around, generally speaking.
It
And
always
so
is.
yeah, and
It
so
usually
it's
is. I
just
don't want to say
something
it always
frustrating.
is, but it
Yeah,
usually is. I mean, the
usually
guy
is.
that ultimately like where I experienced date rape was it was our third date, I think, and I liked him. I was into
Oh,
him. You
yeah,
know, I just
right.
didn't want to have sex. I wasn't ready for that. And I
Yeah,
told him that so clearly. I told him that.
yeah,
And so yeah, I and then after I had that experience as I was becoming more integrated, not always drunk for all of my sexual
yeah,
experiences, not dissociating because as a trauma response and all of that, I began to really realize, wow, I have done this way more times than I'd like to admit because I'm trying to tell the guy I'm into you. I like kissing you. I want to, you know, but I kind of
yeah,
want to stop there. Can we stop
yeah,
there? And they just push and they push and they push and they get you to consent by exhaustion,
right.
where you just say yes to get them to leave you alone.
Yeah,
And it's again, it's the fawn. It's like this is a protection because if I'm rude or if I scream or crazy bitch, like that
yeah,
has happened before, you know,
yeah,
in public, even that's happened to me. And to which I think, you know, then you have every time I say something, I'm like, I can already imagine the response. Well, so what if he calls you a crazy bitch? That's on his end. You gotta protect yourself. It's like
ugh,
women protect themselves by pretending all the time,
yeah,
and that makes it very confusing for the other person. But it's also like, how confusing could it be? After I was date raped and I was seeking help through Planned Parenthood, one of the social
yeah,
workers said, I told her about a few different things, and I was just like, a few different instances, and I was like, maybe they just don't know. Maybe they don't know that this is what they're doing. And
yeah,
she goes, oh, they know. I said, then why are they doing it? And she goes, because they can. And this was pre Me Too.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that sits with me all the time because yeah, I'm not
yeah,
pressing charges on these guys, right? I'm
right.
not,
Me either.
it's just because I'm not going to win, first of all.
Right.
And it's too muddy. I don't want to
So
relive like,
long and painful, and yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, and I just feel like
So,
I've never been able to put any weight on those experiences because I had been drinking, and so it's the
mhm.
fun part of it. But what helped me was this realization of like, well, would I have had sex with him sober? And it's like, oh God, no. I'm like, of course not.
Yeah.
No, not at all. And it's like, oh, okay. So then they decided for me and my body what they were going to do to it at that time, and it's
Mhm.
just, yeah, but yeah, like when you are considering your safety all the time, you're all the less likely to express horniness of any kind, even when it is, and I just
Mhm.
remember, like, I
Mhm.
remember I was like kind of flirty texting with the guy I was with at the time, but we were sleeping in separate areas. And then because of that, he wanted to like come into the room, and I was like, no, 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 this is different.
Yeah.
We're going to bed. I was being flirty, but it's like, oh, I shouldn't have even said anything. I shouldn't have flirted with this
Yeah.
person that I like and have like had hooked up with at that point. But that doesn't mean it's what I want to do right now. Like physically, do these things, and so it's just like
Right.
makes you feel like, well, learn my lesson. God, I've never sex at all, and so it's just. But it's
Right.
good for us to remember too that like consent is a continuous thing. Like, and I love
Yeah.
Amy Schumer for her whole sketch about football players and rape, because he's like,
Yeah.
they have the football players asking all these questions of like, well, what if she says yes and then she says no later, like a crazy person? And then the coach is like, you got to stop, and he's like, no, you got to stop, and they're like freaking out about it. It's a wonderful sketch, and he's like, okay, well, what if my mom won't prosecute? And they just go through all these examples, but like that example of like they can change your mind. And so I think it's adorable that when
Yeah.
I was first with my partner, like I would ask about it. I was like, "Can I kiss you?" I asked the first time. Can we do
Yeah.
this? And checking
Yeah.
in, and like you can. And that's what I think is really fun about healthy sex is like you could start, you could
Mhm.
stop, you could take a break. Like, like I just remember early on, like we had sex a couple times, we then watched a couple YouTube
Mhm.
videos, we had sex a couple times. Like it's just
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
comfortable thing versus like you should never ever feel like you can't. But no, I don't think any woman would feel safe with a man, even if it was like, yeah, I want to do this, and also now I don't really feel like I want to do it anymore. If he's in your
Mhm.
apartment, like the ability to just be like, nah, do you want to go home? I don't really feel like doing this. Like, there's no, I don't feel like
Right.
we're let it for if for nothing else than feeling like, well, I don't want to be a disappointment or whatever. So you have all of that
Yeah.
built up, people pleasing, woman training, and man,
Mhm.
like, well, if she says no, you just have to stay. You have to push more. And how these things
Yes.
just create the rape culture, and
Right.
and how it ties to purity culture and all these things. It's just
Yeah.
creating a disaster. So it's a lot to unlearn, and it's a lot to feel like, am I allowed to even be horny? Because I associate that
Yeah.
basically with
And
unsafety.
it's dangerous, right? Then it's like that's the
Yeah.
narrative that you get. Oh, it's dangerous to be a woman who is excited about
Yeah.
sex. And it's, and but then I think like so many women who aren't like me still experience this. This isn't something, and I think,
Yeah.
I say in it, in that story, I say I was so saddened that I lived in a world where kissing meant like I wanted to have sex. Like,
Yeah.
why does
Couldn't just be a
texting
separate
and
thing.
flirting mean that I am welcoming sex? Why is
Yeah.
going on a date to you sex? Like,
Mhm.
intercourse is a vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
Physically, especially as a woman, you are receiving something into your body. You are
Yeah.
welcoming this foreign object into your ecosystem. That
Mhm.
is a vulnerable thing to do. The woman physically is more vulnerable in that situation. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, why does me flirting with you mean that I want to do that? That's a big
Yeah.
jump. And I think I
Right.
said this in our last podcast. I said to my current partner, on our second date, I said, I think we should talk about sex. He loves to
Yeah.
tell this
Yeah.
story. And he
Yeah.
goes, okay. Because it was just
I
like
know.
kind of out of left field. And I just
I
said to him,
love
like,
that moment.
don't make a move. Let me
I will
make
make
the
the move when
move.
I'm ready.
And
Yeah.
you will have there will be so much clarity. And I
Mhm.
think we even fooled around for a while before we had intercourse.
Yeah.
And he says, I say it's because I was taking my time and I wanted to know that I was really ready. And he's like, or because I had a broken pinky and a fucking cast on my arm and I was afraid I was gonna bludgeon you if we had
Oh
sex.
no.
So it was just like a comedy of errors, the beginning of our relationship. But no, yeah, I just, and I felt like after enough of those experiences, those negative experiences, and I know you have to go, so I'll say this and then we can
Sorry. I know I
we can
hate to cut this
wrap
off.
it up. No dick pun, but dick pun. And I felt like I had really lost this purity of happiness. Like I could
Mhm.
no longer experience the world in this like flirtatious effervescent way because that was no longer safe.
Yeah.
And I was really afraid that I was never, ever, ever going to get back to being boy crazy. That this
Yeah.
was just forever going to be, an admonishment on my
Mhm.
personhood. And that was sad because I was like, I love being the flirt, like I love
Yeah.
that part of myself. I love my
Yeah.
excitement about meeting new people and men, and and I
Mhm.
loved that. And that was a big part of my therapy journey, was getting back to a place where I wasn't afraid to be
Yeah.
myself.
Right. And to not just live from a place of fear is really hard when the world is as scary and as dangerous, and so much of the world is ready to be like, well, she was asking for it, or and it made me
Yes.
think too of like the Shia LaBeouf thing where he's like, these gay men like put their hands around me, and I like, if that's homophobic, then it's like, it's because you're feeling what it's like to be a woman around a man. That like it's, you now you understand consent is kind of the classic thing. It's like,
Yeah,
uh
right, right.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try to work on healing that part of me too, because it's like, it is this like life energy, this horniness, this it helps kind of with my creative energy too. And I feel like I've
Mhm.
so long had it tamped down out of shame and out of feeling like we're not really allowed that. And so it's a lot to unlearn. And
Yeah.
it's not, we're not leaving the church so we can have sex all the time, but it's like, gosh, how much better off would people be if they're not raised with these things? And it's kind of like we talked about too. It's like, if you actually want to stop abortions, like, give sex ed, but it's not like we're just leaving the church because we're hedonistic and we just want to get our fix or whatever, which in and of itself is
Oh,
inherently unsex positive to even word it that way.
right.
So anyway.
Right. Well, again, the binary, right? Oh, well, my joke is when people place judgment on those who deconstruct it and are like, well, I think you just left your religion because you wanted to have sex without
Right.
feeling guilty. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, I did. Don't you want to have sex and not feel
Yeah.
guilty? Like, sounds pretty great to me. Like,
It didn't
you know?
work, but it was still
Yeah.
worth a try.
Yeah. And then I said, and by the way, didn't work. I'm
Yeah.
really working through that. And but yeah, I
It was
just kind of
worth a
put that
shot.
back on them, like, what?
My coach, hopefully, I mean, I won't name him, so hopefully he won't mind me saying this, but he was like, when I came out as trans, so many older women were like, you're not supposed to want to have sex with men, it's just what you do. And he was just like, they are outing themselves to be right and left. And I thought it was just so funny and terrible, because how many women are in relationships they don't want to be in, that maybe didn't want to be moms, maybe didn't want to be
Mhm.
wives, or maybe they do still love and are attracted to men. Hopefully a lot of them are at least happy in that regard, but we certainly know it's like for people to be kind of pushed into those situations where they're not even attracted to the other sex. So it's just like, it's just
Mhm.
sad. It's just a lot of
It
sad
is.
stuff that's
It's
they're wrapped up under this idea of morality, or the family structure being better for children, or whatever they wrap it
mhm.
up in. And it's just bad. It's a lot of bad
Just
stuff.
bad.
So
Just
so
bad.
here's to
Yeah.
here's to making more horny art and celebrating horny people, but especially horny women, because I think they've earned it.
Yeah, yes. One more thing I'll say to like close this out about something you said about horniness and how it like actually fuels your creativity. And,
Yeah.
it really is just this like life giving,
Hmm.
literally, right? Like that's the purpose of it.
Hmm.
But it's also just pleasure, also.
Hmm.
Anyway, I have had friends that are creatives that when they get off birth control, they're like, I am so much more creative and alive
Oh,
because birth control's like fucks with your hormones. So you like
yeah.
don't
I
want
was on it
sex
for like
as
a day
much.
and was like,
Same. I was on a birth control where I was like, okay, I never get aroused and also I can't get wet. Of course I can't get pregnant under these conditions. Like,
oh,
and that I think a lot of women don't ever know their bodies off of birth control. I will say that is one thing purity
yeah.
culture that was a benefit for
Does
me. I
talk about,
never got on
yeah.
birth control until I was
Yeah.
actually sexually active. So I knew my
Hmm.
body off of it. And I was like, this
Hmm.
is terrible. I do not want to be on this shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've reported like I just feel so much more excited about life in general because they're
Hmm.
not like muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got on it briefly, like estrogen, just because my periods
Mhm.
were so much worse after I got my IUD, which was because I was raped, that I just like every
Mm.
period was hell for me. And so I got on that to hopefully stop my period. It didn't work. I felt like a completely different person.
Yeah.
And then I was like, but it was helpful because then I was able to be like, fuck it, if I can get estrogen the same day, I might as well be getting
Yeah.
on testosterone, which I actually want. So it was a good little push
Right,
for me in that
right.
direction. But yeah, it's such a difference. So now I'm just trying to, and I actually have a great new like therapist, somatic specialist that I'm going to be with to
Mhm.
try to kind of help unblock so I can have that kind of creative energy again. And so I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good healing process. And so I
Yes.
just really appreciate these conversations. So grateful for your stories that you shared through your book. Everyone should check it out. We'll keep linking it down below. But thank
Yes.
you so much for being here. Maybe we'll connect again, or otherwise I'll send you some
Yes.
Marco Polos, because it's
Oh,
really fun to talk
definitely.
about this
The
stuff.
Marcus
And
polos. I look
the
forward to
Marcus
them.
Polos, there you go. You'll get some for sure. And also check out Mattie's wonderful videos on Instagram as well. I would have loved to get into that too, but just kind of getting to the point of being able to laugh about this stuff too. So some
Right.
great Christianese there as well. So thank you
Yes.
so much
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much.
We'll catch up with everyone on the next episode of Wholly Unapologetic.
Bye.